About it. I've got lots of bars, so that's a good thing. There we go. So, hello, everybody. I can't check Facebook right now, but it's been working on all the other ones. So, because I'm on my phone, but I would like to introduce the beautiful Ellie Santana on, I don't know, on this screen, it's on my right. It may be on the other side. I don't know. Um, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, Ellie, and what's your passions in this world as a person?
Yes, so my name is Ellie Santana. Um, my passion, contribute to the world in all the ways that I can, helping my fellow humans grow and evolve and pass on the knowledge that I've learned over the years, and hopefully make their life experience easier.
Beautiful. And I actually did a live on that this morning. I feel that everybody is a facet of me, and I'm actually helping myself by helping others. Would you agree?
Of course.
Of
Oh,
course.
absolutely. Yeah,
So
there is so much growth in
there is.
contributing.
There
Um,
is.
it is one thing that I feel it goes unnoticed very often is how much we grow when we contribute.
Absolutely. And once we realize that the whole reality is ours and every person that shows up in some way, shape, or form is a part of us, it makes everything easier and so much simpler. And we can't blame anybody, and we got to take self responsibility so much.
Exactly. Exactly.
Cool. So tell us a little bit about your modalities. How do you do that for people?
So I'm currently, I guess I fall under the umbrella of life coaching. I think for people who are passionate about helping others and don't necessarily have a license or a certification or, let's say, a degree in a specific area, coaching is a great way to contribute. And I feel like there's a lot of coaches doing an amazing job out there. Like I said, helping humanity evolve and make their life experience easier. Um, so I want to say I label myself a life coach. Um, and but really, I mean, it comes to having conversations with people, having meetings with people, having group meetings a lot of the times, and passing the knowledge. There's also a lot of tools that I have learned and tested myself over time. So when I see the need um, for somebody to learn those tools and pass them on and um, help them understand the reason behind using all these tools and how they can help. I feel like that's very useful as well. It has been very useful with the people that I have applied it with or to.
So you coach from your life experience, is what I hear. Is that correct?
Yes, yes,
So what
mostly
you've learned?
yes.
Go ahead. Yep.
So mostly it's definitely, I mean, life experience. Um, in my case, I have also enrolled in like different programs. I have a couple of certifications, so there's added knowledge. But I feel like until you overcome your own struggles, that's really what enables you to help somebody else. So you can
So
read all the books, you can have, you can get these certifications and have the knowledge, but a lot of times that knowledge is not integrated. So it's
mhm.
really when you go through the experience that you are able to empathize and really guide somebody to overcome their struggles as well.
So would you describe what you went through as your shadow work?
Um, well, I don't think shadow work ends
No, it
at
doesn't.
any point in this life. But definitely, um, yes. Well, my childhood experiences, I would say when you are a child, you're not aware that you're doing shadow work. So as a child, you just see a struggle in your life and you don't understand why.
Yep.
But definitely later on in life, when you revisit that past and you go back to heal yourself, yes, you're definitely facing and dealing with those shadows.
Well, and essentially, as a child, you're having this program kind of poured into your ear, and you don't know why you're having this program done, but you're believing it because we're child. Before 7, we don't even reason or filter things.
Right.
So then you grow up and be an adult, and you have a whole bunch of relationship problems, or you're in trauma, or whatever it is, and now it's become your shadow work. It's this thing that's hiding in your shadow that's influencing how you create in your life. Would you agree?
Totally. Yes.
Absolutely.
Um,
It
totally.
will.
I mean, there's so much that's hidden
Yes.
in the unconscious part that unless you purposely sit down to do the work, you're just not going to see it.
Absolutely, and it's hidden, it dictates your outcomes without you even knowing it because of
Exactly.
yourself, and that's where people get lost. I find is they don't realize their part in their own unhappiness, and that's in their shadow. And essentially, the whole task of living life and growing and creating self mastery is to understand what's in your brain that's not serving you and keeps coming out of your mouth every time you talk.
Exactly.
Beautiful.
The limiting beliefs, the programs, the patterns is not just your brain, it's also your emotional patterns, it, your whole background, basically. If you don't come to a point where you can identify what is it that I learned when I was a child and how that doesn't serve me anymore, and then dismantle that whole structure, it's going to drive your life. I mean, your whole life.
Absolutely. And
So
the act of ascension or awakening, which is what I teach people, awakening you, is essentially the path of becoming conscious of your unconscious stuff. Subconscious, unconscious, exactly what you just said.
And I would add, it's definitely awakening is becoming conscious, understanding that you can be the observer of your life, you can be the observer of your mind, you can be the observer of your emotion, but also becoming responsible to
Mm-hmm.
rewire all of that and restructure your inner world.
It's self-responsible is even a
Self-responsibility.
more key because a lot of people will say take responsibility, but they won't kind of point the finger back at them. It's like I'm taking responsibility. You've done this to me, which is victim,
Right.
which is giving our power away. But the minute you realize that you're pointing the finger this way, there's 3 pointing back at you, and ultimately you welcomed everything into your life that's ever happened to you or whatever. And if you don't want to admit that, you've given your power to it, and you lose. It's,
Exactly.
it's not
I,
bad. You
I
just
think
lose. Keep going.
I think that's where coaches actually come in handy because I think what you're referring to is a lot of times people talk out of mental projection. So they
Absolutely.
think they're doing something, but then we as coaches, we are able to identify whether or not the actions of that person are matching what they say. And if they're
Exactly.
not, then in a gentle way, we bring that up to them and help them see this is what you're projecting out of the knowledge that you have in your mind, but your actions are not necessarily supporting what you want to do in your life.
You're essentially as the coach the reflection or the mirror for them
Exactly.
to hold them in accountability. It's an accountability
Exactly.
partner that says you said you're going to change the way you're thinking of yourself. Well, last week you said you would, but you're still doing the same things. But if you don't have that mirror, you don't have some feedback to be able to say you're improving or you're going back into the hole, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
So that does that describe what you do for people is a reflector and accountable and showing them truth.
Totally. Yes. So
Absolutely.
in my practice, I sit down. One of the first things that we do is sit down, talk about what is the reason why you're seeking help, and try to identify those limiting beliefs. Try to identify the emotional patterns that are holding people in a particular habit. And then we identify the practices that the person can incorporate to start rewiring their minds and restructuring those patterns. And then there is the accountability part where we can meet, I usually ask them, how often do you need me? How often
Mm-hmm.
do you need me? And whether that is one time a week, two times a week, one time a month, um, and then be that reminder for them and constantly. I mean, human beings learn through repetition.
Absolutely.
So there's definitely a lot of repetition of the information, reminding them, this is where you are, this is where you want to go, and this is the resources that will take you there.
And essentially you're helping them break bad habits of mental shooting yourself down or talking badly about yourself. So to break a habit, what does it say? It can take up to 6 weeks. So not that they have to meet with you every week for 6 weeks, but it may take 6 weeks for that pattern to be worn into your brain and for change.
It actually takes more than that. So there's a lot of science behind this. I don't know, I'm not a scientist, so I try to memorize as many facts as I can. But
Mm-hmm.
there's the first facet when you do something for 21 days for your brain to understand that you want to do this now as a habit. Then
Yep.
it takes anywhere from 6 weeks to 90 days for you to actually do it, which means unconscious.
Mm-hmm.
And then it can take up to 3 years for
Sure.
you to break that old connection. So falling back into the old habits is so easy. So you have to, remind yourself. It has to be um, intentional.
Absolutely.
And then there's a point when that connection actually breaks, but it can take up to 3 years according to science.
And well, it's got so many other variables that once we add in other traumas, other well-worn patterns or whatever, and I can see that where it can take much longer period of time. But with a coach or somebody to help unearth the things that keep pulling you back into that pattern, it is invaluable because I give a lot of truth in my lives and I tell people the truth of what they need to do. But sometimes until it's reflected or somebody can be actually held in self responsibility for the first couple times, they won't want to change because that's safe or that's normal or that's the
Exactly.
way that worked, but it's actually not working for you because people are hating their life or they're angry or there's something. So sometimes you just need that perfect reflector of somebody else saying, "Hey, why do you keep saying that about yourself? Why do you keep saying should or could or try
Right.
instead of I am or I'm doing?"
Exactly.
That can be massive.
One thing that I try to really inject into people's mind is that it's a process and it's going to get you out of your comfort zone. So people
Mm-hmm.
tend to go back to what's comfortable and what's familiar.
Mm-hmm.
So when you are trying to become a better version of yourself, it's gonna pull you out of your comfort zone, meaning it's
Yep.
going to be this uncomfortable. You are going to be uncomfortable, and we don't like that.
Yep.
So it's easy to say, "Oh, I'll skip the gym today." For those who are trying to work on their physical aspects, on their health, on the
Mm-hmm.
fitness area, you
Mm-hmm.
start going to the gym and then it feels good for a week, for two, and then one morning you're really tired, and that's all it takes for you to go back to the old pattern, to the old behavior.
Yes.
So you have to be aware that you are going to be uncomfortable for
Mm-hmm.
a long period of time. It takes
Mm-hmm.
time. It's a process. It doesn't happen overnight. It takes a lot of practice. It takes conscious effort.
Yep.
And so that's
And
something that I constantly emphasize. You're going to be uncomfortable and you're going to have relapses, and it's okay. It's a process. You go back to it.
right. So I agree with you completely. So ultimately, we've got to the point that we feel this is the best that we can deserve. So we stay in the fear of being small because that's all we believe in our head that we're allowed, instead of
Right.
changing completely and allowing something new in, which could be uncomfortable and could bring new challenges. But that's the point of change. The new challenges,
Exactly.
a lot of what we feel is fear is actually exhilaration. It's the top of the roller coaster, and it's like, oh, this is going to be scary, or whatever. You're feeling that your
Right.
stomach come up in your throat, but it's also change. It's like, oh, that was really fun when you get to the bottom. But we've been taught to interpret that change, that feeling of exhilaration, as fear, and it's not. It's change. It's beautiful, and it can be eye-opening and mind-expanding, or it can be scary as hell. Your choice.
And I have even I would even say, even if it's fear, I think that most people have relate fear to something negative. And it
Right.
doesn't have to be negative all the time. Fear
Yep.
just means that you're about to step into the unknown. But the
Absolutely.
unknown doesn't have to be bad. It doesn't have to be negative. There is going to be fear because if you have never been in that emotional place, in that mental place, it's just going to feel completely unknown to you. So fear is going
New.
to kick in and try to warn you. Exactly. Exactly. But it's not
Exactly.
necessarily negative.
So use the acronym, is what I tell people. Fear is false evidence appearing real,
Yeah.
which is exactly what you described. And now all of a sudden it's something new. It's something I haven't experienced before. Lean into it, breathe, and stay open in your body. And you might get surprised by something that you didn't expect, that's completely opposite to what you've always got and you're so happy with. So
Exactly.
that's the change right there. Is a change will bring something that you'd never even imagined possible before, because we've limited our possibility to stay safe. It's literally we're in a cage, and now we don't know how to get out of the cage.
Exactly. But
But the
when you
door was
start
never
doing the
locked. Keep
work,
going. Yeah.
exactly. When you start doing the work and you start making yourself uncomfortable purposely, and you start putting yourself in those emotional, uncomfortable situations over time, again, it's a process. It doesn't happen overnight. But over time, what you start noticing is you are different. All of
Absolutely.
a sudden, one day you realize, oh, wait, I'm becoming a better version. I'm not reacting like I used
Yep.
to, or I'm not worrying so much, or I'm not even crying about the things that I used to cry before. You start becoming a better version of you.
And new possibilities start percolating. New people show up in your life,
Exactly.
new relationships, new money,
Exactly.
new abundance,
You
because
start
you've
changing your
now
reality.
let the control or constriction off, and now all of a sudden it's like, ooh, wow, what I wanted to maybe is
Exactly.
possible now. Magic.
So I usually do this with an analogy. I tell everybody. So if you put rice, water, and salt in a pot, what do you get?
If you
You
boil it
get
long
white
enough,
rice.
congee. Yeah, fried rice. Yeah.
Now, if you put the water first, and then you
Yeah.
put the rice, and then you put salt, what do you get? You still get white rice. But if you
Absolutely.
put salt, and then the rice, and then water, you still get white rice.
Yeah.
Now, add some seasoning there. Add
Mm-hmm.
some chicken in there. Add some beans in there. Now, what do you get? So a lot of people are just trying to change the order of the ingredients and trying to get a different result, but putting in the same thing every day. You are
Yeah.
going to get the same results. It's not until you do something new, something different, that you start changing your reality.
Well, you make it brown rice, and now it's brown colored rice. But
Exactly.
yeah, I hear you. Or you put it in a frying pan and some oil, and now it becomes fried rice, and it can be
Exactly.
really tasty with some soy sauce and blah blah blah. That's what we're doing with our life, is start adding ingredients. And what I like to do is play the edge, that place that feels fear and uncomfortable, which is edge play, you can call it. But it's also the edge of our cage. What's the thing that I can't leave this fence, or my yard's not going to be safe, or whatever? Now you jump over the fence, you realize the grass is green over here too, and now you have all the earth to explore instead of just like 1 acre or whatever, wherever you live. That's how
Right.
simple it can be sometimes.
Mhm.
Where's
And
your
that and
cage? Yeah,
that's
go ahead.
another trick of the mind. The mind will always magnify the fear and make you believe that it's going to be 10, 20 times worse than it could really be. Um, even even if you get a negative result, a lot of times you anticipate 10, 20 times worse than it actually was, than it actually
Absolutely.
was. And then you feel like, wait a minute, it was negative, but it still wasn't what I thought it would be. And
Hmm.
most times, that negative outcome is not what happens.
I agree.
So it's
So
all the mind, the tricks of the mind.
ultimately, well, it's the mind and the ego because they're one and the same, right? So the
Right.
mind, if we're trying to stay in duality and be separate and be an avatar and all this kind of stuff, there's a thing called ego or edge God out that was created between us and God. So it says you're not worthy. You did something bad. You're bad. And we've lived with this in a human experience as a fractal of God and basically sit in this fear of doing wrong and not pleasing, and it creates this story, so it'll magnify everything and filter it. You get through this kind of like blindfolded or shuttered, like they put on the horses or whatever, blinders that keep you believing that you're bad or wrong or you're not doing right, which is absolutely incorrect. But that interpretation basically cages you and keeps you
Exactly.
small.
Exactly.
So when we talk about ego death and other things, we're essentially walking through a stage where no longer the ego leads. And it doesn't have to die. It can be an observer. It can be part of you because we need a healthy ego. But an ego that's like,
Exactly.
I need to take control and you're not good enough. I'm taking power or whatever. That's the game almost of a little child inside that's in a control, control, control because I don't feel safe.
There's a funny story behind that, or you know,
Go ahead.
um, so in the beginning of my awakening, I started hearing about ego death, and then I said, okay, that's exactly what I need. I need an ego death, and then I will be different, and I will be this enlightened being, and everything will be perfect, right? So I had read the book The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, and
Okay.
Eckhart Tolle had that experience where he had a sudden ego death. Um,
He
and
just blew
then the
apart
next
one day.
day,
Yep. Keep going.
right, the next day he woke up and everything was different in his life, and he just went from depression, from severe depression to enlightenment. So I said,
Yep.
okay, that's exactly what I need. So how do I do this? Let me just meditate myself into enlightenment. I need to kill my ego. And then one day I was listening to a podcast, and somebody, I can't remember, it was a guy, but I can't remember his name. And he said, a lot of spiritual people out there are looking for an ego death, and they don't
Mm-hmm.
realize that if you have an ego death, you could even lose your mind. Why do you want to kill your ego? You need your ego, but you need a healthy ego. And
Yep.
then that gives me a different perspective, and I said, oh, wait a minute, because your ego holds your identity.
Mm-hmm.
So if you kill your ego completely, you lose yourself completely.
Well,
So you
you
could
lose
even
yourself in 3D. I agree. Keep going.
exactly. And
Yep.
so that's when I learned, okay, so it's not necessarily an ego death. I just need to heal, and then have a better perception of my identity, or
Yep.
even those things that I want to change about my identity, because I no longer identify as many things that I used to identify with 10 years ago. So my
Well,
identity has been restructured in many ways.
you're essentially taking the sticky notes off that are on your forehead that says I'm a mother, I'm
Exactly.
a wife, I'm a whatever,
Exactly.
and now all of a sudden
Exactly.
realizing I'm spirit. I am all. I am. Simple as that.
Exactly.
Beautiful.
Yes. Yes.
So that's what shadow work is. That's what awakening is taking all the sticky notes off that no longer serve, sending that down into I'm a beautiful spiritual person and I have integrity and I'm accountable, and all these things, once you take these into your spirit and your soul and how you live your life, you become a different person.
Exactly. And you change your reality, which is what
Literally.
we are after. Um, it's definitely internal, but a lot of people want to see the external evidence um, for the work that they do, but that starts inside. And another
Absolutely.
thing about the ego is that when you go, there's a lot of ancient texts out there, and some people that are still teaching. I mean, Eckhart Tolle is one of them. Joe Dispenza and so many others teach about the ego. And the purpose of the ego is to help you survive.
Hmm.
So we need the ego. We
Yes.
absolutely, you know. So
It's
this
part of our
idea
protection.
that
Yep.
exactly, it's just recognizing the elements that form ourselves and why are they there? How can we utilize them? And then restructure whatever needs to be restructured, rewire our minds, and then we can see that external evidence.
Hmm. But it will literally block you to the point that you can't have a relationship anymore. You can't have love in your life. You can't have anything because it'll make these huge jumps and say all love is bad, or all women hurt me, or something like that, speaking from my experience. And then you eventually have to come back and say that's not true, because I meet a lot of women that don't hurt me and all this kind of stuff. And you go through this journey of self-cleansing to take those sticky notes and the beliefs off, which is armor. Essentially, we put this armor on to protect ourselves, and it goes on our heart. But it's a cage just as much. You're like, weight yourself down with 100 pounds of steel armor, you're not going to be able to walk around or be very happy, are you?
Exactly.
So we're doing
We
it all.
definitely have to take off the labels.
Labels.
I
Yep.
remember, I mean, one of the things that I went through and overcame, it was depression.
Mm-hmm.
And back in, I mean, still in like around 2020, I used to say, I suffer from depression. I have depression. Until one day I said, why am I wearing this label? As if I really want it there. Let me take off the label and start applying conscious language. How can
Absolutely.
I rephrase this in a way that serves me? Well, I'm healing from depression. I'm in the process of healing from depression. And
Beautiful.
that slowly, because again, it's a process. It's a
Mm-hmm.
process. I cannot stress that enough.
Mm-hmm.
Over time, you're going to notice the big changes.
Well, it's about being comfortable with the new thing and then saying this is what I want, and then lock it into your system, because before it might have been scary. So can I ask you, how did depression feel in your body so other people can assess if they have depression?
The way that I always describe it is I felt like I was a dead soul in a living body. I
Okay.
felt like my body was dragging my dead soul everywhere.
Okay.
Um, I mean, I felt completely dead. I just
So numb, unhappy, couldn't be happy
completely
at any point.
unhappy.
Absolutely.
That yes, yes.
Heavy.
I went
Yep.
through I went through seasons because I was first diagnosed with depression when I was 16 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Um, up until 2021,
Mm-hmm.
when I really had a healing experience. And so through those years, of course, you know, I would have periods of time where I was feeling a little happier, months at a time and then anything would trigger um, those, I would say, those bottom states, right?
Episodes, I call
But
them. Yep. Keep going.
yes. So, but in 20, since 2014, around that time until 2020,
Mm-hmm.
there's just very few, I mean, happy days. I was in a really severe, it was, at that moment, it was chronic, what they would label as chronic depression.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, so unhappiness, hopelessness. Um, I got to a point where I was feeling it physically. So I
Were you
felt
were you
this,
suicidal at all during that?
yes, Yes.
Okay, that's very
There
typical,
were,
so
yes,
it's okay.
uh, mhm, suicidal attempts, um, uh, aches and pains in my body, fatigue. I was tired all the time. I just didn't have the motivation to do anything. I was just miserable, miserable.
Understood. Me too. I've had that. Keep going.
Mhm. And so it was actually the last time, uh, well, in 2020,
Hmm.
I was in Florida and I found out that Joe Dispenza was going to be in Florida, just about 3 hours away from where I live. And I decided to go to the retreat. And
Beautiful.
my life was like Jesus before and after. It's like I always kind of like say, it's like Jesus before and after. I mean, everybody that attends one of those retreats have a before and after in their life. Um,
Beautiful.
and so in that retreat, there was one day when I felt these rushes of energy going through my body. I had many experiences during
Hmm.
those 7 days, but this
Hmm.
particular experience I felt, and this is what some people label as Kundalini. I don't
Hmm.
have problem with terms. I'm just careful in case some people don't relate. So it was a rush of energy going through my body, and I literally felt the pain and all of those symptoms being cleared away from
Well,
my body, just literally leaving my body. So
was this
from
during
there,
Joe's event, or was this after, or when?
yes,
When did it happen?
yes, during the
Okay.
event. This was on
Okay.
the fourth day of the event during the pineal gland meditation.
Hmm.
And yes, it was, I mean, it was a life-changing experience. And then it still took me some time. I had to continue doing the work. I had relapses after that. Um, but in 2022, I had an experience that put me back in rock bottom, let's say.
Hmm.
And I was able to identify. I remember the day when I said, wow, I am deeply sad, but I am not depressed. So that's when I noticed I had been healed.
Well, you're
And from that
different.
moment, exactly. So I took my medicine. I do not advise anybody to do this. This is my experience. I grabbed my pills, I flushed them down the toilet, and that was it. That was it. I'm
Cold
healed.
turkey. Wow.
Yes.
Cool. And how did that work out? Did you have withdrawal? Did you have all these other things?
Not after that. I have been very sad. I have had
Okay.
experiences where I'm very sad and emotionally struggling about certain things, but never depressed. Never
Okay.
depressed again.
And never suicidal, I assume, again.
Never suicidal again. Never. It's gone.
Beautiful.
It's gone. I'm new.
So this isn't a journey that many light workers are on, is what you just talked about, and people need to hear your experience and what you just described and realize there's nothing wrong with them. There's nothing bad. It's the journey of healing that we're doing right now, and
Mhm.
people like yourself could be a good reflector for them to get them out of their depressed feeling, their doldrums or suicidal events or whatever. Not that we're suicide
Mhm.
counselors by any means, but at least you can say, "I felt that. Yes, it's awful, and I hated it." And then you witness them. Sometimes it's just as important as listening, like a counselor, and hearing them say that they wanted to kill themselves and they never told anybody before. Sometimes is the first steps of healing.
Exactly. Somebody that understands, somebody, I mean, there's a certain level of validation when you
Mm-hmm.
can fully empathize with somebody else. It's not the same and this was also my experience. I realized that because I had been in therapy my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
And so at some point, I realized these people are sitting in front of me with a book and talking to me from a memorized script.
Yep. There's story.
And I don't really feel the empathy. I don't really
Absolutely.
feel, I just feel like something rather than someone in front of them. And
Yep.
so that's why I decided to become a coach because I said it's different when somebody sits down and says, I went through that. I know exactly
Yeah.
where you are because I went through that. I know exactly how you feel, and this is how you feel. And then the person feels the validation, and they understand. Oh, wait, so this is not necessarily wrong. And I mean, I
Well,
feel like there's a lot of freedom in that.
well, they become to realize there was a value and there was a purpose to it, and it wasn't about them getting beat to shit and small. It was about them evolving, going
Exactly,
from the
growing.
worst to the best and growing. Absolutely.
Exactly. Yes, it's beautiful.
So that's what we would do with a person in shadow work, like have a discussion with them, talk about their deepest shadow, which is their suicidalness or their whatever, and their thoughts, and they got a loaded gun under their pillow and they're waiting or whatever. Well, we felt that too, but we didn't make that choice because that would be just pulling the eject handle. That would be not us evolving and growing from this. And and a lot of the stuff that we're dealing with is actually past life. It's from our lineage trauma. It's from our parents. We inherit our program and our software 50% from each of our parents. And we may be living out some of their pain and their suffering from 10 lifetimes ago or their grandparents. And really, we just got to learn to let the emotion come through us, the energies come through us, breathe, cry, feel sad, and not feel ashamed about it, because those are the things that invert it and twist it and want to kill us, which is not truth.
Exactly. I heard there's one of the mentors out there, DG Mindset. He's amazing. And I
Mm-hmm.
heard him say once, a lot of adults in the world don't realize that your 7 year old is driving your life.
The version of
And
you that's 7 years old, absolutely.
yes, yes. Some people emotionally and mentally are
Yep.
still stuck in that age between 7 and 10 years old. And they don't
Yep.
realize they're still reacting with the same emotional intelligence they had back then. And it's not
Absolutely.
even theirs. It's not even something that they develop on their own. It was imposed. They absorbed it from parents or
Up
whatever
until
their figure.
up until age 7, everything that our parents tell us is unfiltered and believed to be absolute
Exactly.
truths. So that's exactly what you're saying. So we're
Exactly.
our inner child, is what you just described.
The inner child, exactly. So we have to go back and understand and even do. I recommend a lot of journaling. What did I learn? Especially in those areas that you struggle. So, you know, if you didn't have, let's say, a good example in your house about money,
Yep.
and today, you don't make a lot of money, but you are totally at peace with that, that's okay.
Yep. That's
But
okay.
if there's something in your life that you're struggling with and you want to change, let's go back to when you were 7 and see what you learned about that. And
Absolutely.
then there's probably a lot of work to do over there to go and heal that child about, in my case, I was abused when I was a child by my mom, physically abused my
Mm-hmm.
whole life.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so my emotional intelligence was zero, absolutely zero. And I was never allowed to express my emotions,
Mm-hmm.
for anything. So I realized, and I'm already 30 at the time, 34, 35, when I realized, wow, my wounded little girl is throwing tantrums right now at
Absolutely.
35, 36. So I had to go back and talk to her and say, hey, I'm in charge now, and whatever process, meditation, hypnosis, all the different tools that are available to go and heal your inner child.
And the scary part, you were giving that all to your children and pouring it in there. And I assume you have children, which
Yes,
is a nightmare as well, because now you're like, oh, did I hurt my kids? But this is the pattern of what our parents did to us and their parents did to
exactly.
them, and we're ending it. That's the shamanic cycle. We're the medicine to heal, what is it, 10 generations back and 7 forward, by us doing the work to finally say no more.
Exactly.
What a
That's
beautiful
the
thing,
magic
but
right there. Yes.
intense. Freaking intense. It's
Yes.
not going to be no crying and all easy or whatever. It's going to be friggin' intense.
So that is another thing that I think there's a misconception about is that people think that the work is beautiful. When we say transformation, oh, that sounds so pretty. And
Ha! Wee!
becoming a better version, right? Becoming a better
Yeah.
version of yourself. What a wonderful thing. But that comes with a lot of pain and a lot of discomfort, a lot of sleepless nights, a lot of tears, a lot of rejection, even. I mean, there's a lot of discomfort behind that, a lot of pain,
Well,
suffering.
essentially, you got to unbelieve everything you believed as truth to a point where you believe in a way that now serves you. That simple.
Right. Exactly.
So,
So, and it's not
it, but
easy.
it's got a reward at the end, and the reward may not be, oh, you're abundant and you got a beautiful boyfriend or girlfriend or whatever. The reward is in peace, presence, holding yourself,
Oh,
and
yes,
knowing that you're safe without having to be anything to anyone.
totally. Totally. I think that one thing that if I could really embed this in everybody's mind is don't do the work chasing an external outcome.
No,
Do the work because you get to a place of peace and self-love, and you get to a place where no matter what's happening around you, you love yourself and you're at peace, and you're worry free. And I'm not saying these emotions get 100% eradicated, but you get to a place of security within yourself, and definitely self-love and faith and gratitude.
and allowing and accepting what the universe is bringing, because it only comes
Exactly.
if you created it beforehand to teach you from, which might be a relationship or an abuse or whatever. But what's this got for me instead of to me? It's telling you that things are changing, things are getting better, and I needed this to reflect on some facet that maybe was poured in my ear from my parents, and I don't even realize it. And now I'm changing so I can grow.
Exactly. Growth. That is the magical word there. Everything that's happening is
Mm-hmm.
for your growth.
Yep,
If you learn how to use it, you grow. If you become braced against what's happening to you, then you suffer. But it's still
absolutely,
happening for you.
absolutely. And from that, I've learned the darkest light, the lightest light, because it's all love in some way, shape, or form. Yeah, maybe you got traumatized, maybe you got abused, maybe you got whatever, but maybe you're out of your power in your whole life and past lives, and now you're finally rising up through this pain and this suffering and this hurting and feeling small and crushed. All of a sudden, one day you say no more, and you
Exactly.
all of a sudden that's your growth. That was the thing that propelled you. So that
Hmm.
thing you can't even see if it's good or bad, and not that there's any good or bad at all, but until after it's all through and you get to the end and you say, holy crap, that was a freaking blessing, thank God.
Exactly.
But at the time you can't realize it. You said, oh, that's the reason why I'm not worthy and blah blah blah. We just have this little child story going on in our head, and we can't even see the light in it yet.
And
Everything
unworthiness
has a
is
light.
another.
Keep going.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Unworthiness is another big part of the whole process.
it
And
is.
until you become conscious of that, and understand, oh, so if I stay in this place, then I will continue to feel unworthy. But once I overcome this is how I transform.
Absolutely.
I mean, everything, I feel like every situation is a blessing in disguise if you know how to use it.
It's like a poke out from outside of ourselves telling us to go look at this, feel this pain, feel this suffering, don't hide
Exactly.
from it anymore. And magic
Exactly.
happens.
Hmm.
So I don't want to stop you here, but we got the last 5 minutes yet here. So I'd like people to have an opportunity. How do they connect with you? How do they find out more about you?
Yeah, so Ellie Santana on Facebook, Soul Prince Life Coaching on Instagram, and I have an email address. They can send me an email. It's soulprincelifecoaching@yahoo.com.
Soul
Those are the
prints,
three.
like footprints, PRINTS.
Yes,
Soul prints.
Soul
Okay. Yep.
Prince Life
Yep.
Coaching altogether,
Yep.
at yahoo.com.
Okay.
Those are the three main.
Perfect. Well, I want people to understand, like, she's spoken about her experience, she's spoken about her life, she's real, she's done the work, she's not some good person. She even said she didn't have certification specifically in these areas. The people that are really doing the work, and the people that will be able to reflect for you the best are the people that have actually lived it and then made it through,
Exactly.
done their shadow work. Don't go to somebody that's got a certification, has been proven supposedly as good. If they haven't done their shadow work, they're not going to be able to nudge you in the right way. And what I hear is Ellie's real, and she's done the work, and she's been through depression. She's had hit the bottom, and you can see her right now. She's smiling. She's happy. She's positive. You can't fake this stuff. You can't fake a laugh like that. If you're depressed, it's like instead of a
Right. Right.
because now you see the joy and the craziness in the human experience and the depth of it, but it gave you a gift, is what I see.
Totally. And I totally believe in the energy transfer. And I totally believe that authenticity talks on your behalf. All
Absolutely.
I do is just be authentic. I try, that's one of the values that I live by is integrity and is authenticity.
That's big.
And I just try to incorporate that in my daily life every day. How can I be authentic today? How can I be integral today? And just live by that. And I feel like that speaks for me. A lot
It
of
does.
times people approach me and they ask me questions, and I just feel like this is the energy doing the work on its own. So I have no doubt that many people out there feel feel that authenticity. And so
Well, it's a vibration you put out. You call it energy, but it's a
exactly.
vibration. And everything that you've
Hmm.
healed exists in your frequency and vibration. So just by talking to you, just by seeing your picture here or whatever, you are sending into the field who Ellie Santana is. I'm putting out Paul Hanrider at the same time. That will go into their field. It will show them that there's a possibility for better and that somebody else has done it. And they can access the vibration of that just by listening to this. And then
Yeah.
if they want more, they can come talk to us. They can spend a little money with us to help us reflect and give that on a one-to-one basis, or sometimes even just having somebody on hold that you can contact and say, Ellie, I'm having this thing and I want to die.
Right.
What do I
Right.
do? We don't have that in most of our world. So if we make a connection and we join in with people like us to share and expand, and basically based on what Ellie's just talked about, the hell she went through and the pain and the suffering and the depression, she's going to know when you're hitting that bottom, and she's going to say, well, just smile for a second. Whether you want to smile or not, just smile for a second. Take a deep breath.
Take a
Uh,
deep
don't
breath.
don't have the alcohol. Don't have the pills. Don't have whatever. Just smile, and she's going to shine light into your heart, and she's going to give you hope in in a vibration. Not that she can pick you up or fix you or anything. She's just going to smile and say, I know, honey, it hurts. It's awful, and I feel it.
Right.
Now
I
take a
always
breath.
say that there is a way, there is a roadmap to where you want to go.
Yep.
So number one, it's definitely possible.
Hmm.
For people that come to me and say, you don't understand how depressed I am, I have been there. I was in hell myself. In
Yep.
hell. I
Yep.
mean, I was dead inside my body. I know what it is to come back to life. So
Yep.
it is possible, number one. And number two, there's the roadmap to get to where you want to go. So, and that's why
Absolutely.
I'm here. Then, if you want to walk the path, if you want me to walk the path with you, I'm here for you.
You have the map for them to wake up, and they're not going to get in the briar bushes and off the cliff because you went it yourself. You have a map that you can provide people,
Exactly.
and that's magic. So I'm going to have to kind of close here. My battery's almost dead on my phone, but we have
Okay.
had a beautiful and
It was
joyous
lovely.
exchange. I thank you.
Beautiful.
And
Yes.
if anybody wants to connect with her, as Ellie said earlier, you can put your notes in the bottom under the Facebook. I'll tag you as soon as I get back to my computer or whatever, and I'll
Okay.
send you a video copy of this once I can download it. It takes a few hours before it's streamable. So
Okay.
thank you very much,
Thank
Ellie.
you so
This
much.
is
Thank you for the opportunity.
absolutely. And
Thank you.
I don't know what's going on with the retrogrades or whatever. Every once in a while, your video clicks out. I don't know if that's my phone or whatever, but we got the gist of everything. It just goes for like a half a second and then comes right back. So it's interesting. So, anyways, Thank you, everybody, for listening. And I look forward to talking again, Ellie. We'll talk soon.
Yeah, me too. Talk soon. Thank you so
Okay, I'm
much.
going to hit end, and I think it'll let us go back to the room here.